Close your eyes and picture it. You're standing on a sun-drenched hill in Andalusia, southern Spain. The air smells like wild herbs and warm earth. Stretching out before you, all the way to the horizon, are thousands of ancient, gnarled olive trees, with their silver-green leaves shimmering in the Mediterranean breeze. You own a mill right in the center of this paradise. You press the olives, you bottle the oil, you ship it off to high-end boutiques in New York, Tokyo, and London. It's romantic, isn't it? It feels less like a business and more like a permanent, paid vacation. You're bottling liquid gold. You're preserving a millennia-old tradition. You just sit back, let nature do the work, and watch the euros roll in. Wake up. Because the reality of owning an olive oil mill in Spain is one of the most brutal, high-stakes, hyper-competitive industrial undertakings on the planet. This is a business where a single frost can wipe out your entire annual revenue in one night. Where global commodities traders dictate your margins from computer screens thousands of miles away. Where you are forced to spend millions on stainless steel machinery that sits completely idle for 9 months of the year. Spain is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the olive oil world, producing roughly half of the entire global supply. But surviving in this arena requires nerves of steel. Because here is the truth. When you buy an olive oil mill, you aren't in the business of selling culinary romance. You are in the business of managing severe weather risk, industrial waste, and volatile liquid commodities. To understand the economics of a Spanish olive oil mill, you first have to realize that olive oil is not one single product, and a mill is not one single type of business. The Spanish market is heavily stratified, and your financial survival depends entirely on which of these 4 distinct battlegrounds you choose to fight in. First, there are the massive cooperatives. This is the backbone of the Spanish olive oil industry. A cooperative mill isn't owned by one romantic entrepreneur. It's collectively owned by hundreds, sometimes thousands, of local farmers. The economics here are entirely based on terrifying, immense volume. They process millions of kilos of olives a day. They don't care about cute glass bottles. They pump the oil straight into massive tanker trucks and sell it in bulk to global brokers. The margins per liter are razor thin. If global prices drop by a few cents, the whole town feels the pain. Second, you have the single estate boutique. This is the dream you probably had at the start. You own the land, you grow the olives, and you mill them on site. The focus here is ultra-premium extra virgin olive oil. You are harvesting early, utilizing beautiful packaging, and selling directly to consumers or high-end restaurants. The margins here can be phenomenal. You might sell a 500 milliliter bottle for $30. But the volume is incredibly low, and your marketing budget has to be astronomically high. You aren't just selling oil. You are selling a luxury brand. Third are the industrial refiners and blenders. These guys rarely press fresh olives themselves. Instead, they buy lower-grade oil that has high acidity or sensory defects, and put it through a heavy chemical and thermal refining process. They strip away the bad taste, blend it with a tiny percentage of virgin oil to give it some color and flavor, and sell it in massive plastic jugs for supermarkets worldwide. This is a pure commodity play. It requires massive capital, chemical engineering, and global logistics. And finally, the independent toll mill. This is a pure service business. You don't own the trees. You just own the expensive machinery. Local farmers who don't belong to a cooperative bring their olives to you. You press the oil for them, and in exchange, you either charge a flat fee per kilo of olives processed, or you keep a percentage of the extracted oil to sell yourself. Your biggest economic enemy here isn't the price of oil. It's the cost of electricity. So, you want to buy your own independent or boutique mill. Let's open the ledger. Because the barrier to entry is paved with hidden financial landmines that outsiders almost never see coming. First, forget the quaint stone wheels and woven mats you see in historical documentaries. A modern, competitive mill is a high-tech biochemical laboratory. You need continuous flow, two-phase centrifugal extractors. You need stainless steel malaxers with perfect temperature control to ensure the paste never exceeds 27 degrees Celsius, the strict legal limit for cold, extracted oil. You need massive, nitrogen-flushed storage silos to prevent the oil from oxidizing before it's bottled. A mid-sized, high-quality milling setup can easily run into the millions of dollars before you've pressed a single olive. But the machinery is just the beginning. Let's talk about the single biggest hidden nightmare of the olive oil business: agricultural waste. When you press an olive, only about 15 to 20% of that fruit becomes oil. The remaining 80% is a wet, heavy, highly acidic sludge made of pits, skin, and vegetable water. You cannot just dump this in a river or leave it in a field. It is considered toxic waste and will trigger massive environmental fines. You have to pay specialized industrial plants to haul this sludge away. Managing this waste stream is a constant, heavy logistical and financial burden that eats directly into your operating margins. Then there is the ghost town cost. An olive oil mill operates at a frantic 24 hours a day pace for about 60 to 90 days during the harvest season. For the other 9 to 10 months of the year, the machinery sits completely silent. Yet, you still have to pay the mortgage on the facility. You still have to pay insurance. You still have to retain your master miller, because if he leaves for a competitor, he takes all your operational secrets with him. You are financing 12 months of overhead, with 3 months of cash flow. This brings us to the absolute core of the olive oil business: the ironclad rule that will govern every single decision you make as a mill owner. Here is the central paradox: quality and yield are mortal enemies. To make the absolute best, award-winning, health-boosting extra virgin olive oil, you have to harvest the olives early, usually in October, when they are still green. At this stage, the olives are packed with polyphenols, the antioxidants that give premium oil its spicy, peppery kick. But there's a catch: green olives haven't finished developing their oil. If you press them, your yield might be an agonizingly low 10 or 12%. Meaning, for every 100 kilos of olives you buy and process, you only get 10 to 12 kilos of oil. On the other hand, if you wait until December or January, the olives turn black and plump. They are fully loaded with oil. Your yield could skyrocket to 22 or 25%. You literally double your product. But the quality plummets. The polyphenols are gone. The oil tastes flat, greasy, and is far more susceptible to oxidation and defects. It might lose its extra virgin status entirely and be downgraded, destroying its market value. As a mill owner, you are caught in a perpetual, agonizing tug-of-war. Do you chase the high margins of premium quality, knowing you will have barely any oil to sell? Or do you chase the high volume of late harvest yield, knowing you will have to sell it at rock-bottom commodity prices? The better the oil, the less of it you get. You can never have both. To see how violently these economics can swing, we don't need to look at one specific, isolated company. We just have to look at the massive, publicly visible supply shocks that have hammered the Spanish market in recent years. Look at the historic Iberian droughts of 2023 and 2024. On paper, if you looked at global headlines, you might have thought Spanish mill owners were getting filthy rich. Because of the drought, global supplies plummeted, and the wholesale price of extra virgin olive oil skyrocketed to historic, never-before-seen highs. Consumers were outraged at the supermarket. But inside the mills, it was an economic bloodbath. Why? Because a mill's profitability relies on volume to cover its fixed costs. In a severe drought, the trees simply don't produce fruit. A mill that normally processes 10 million kilos of olives might only receive 3 million kilos. Yes, the price of the final oil was incredibly high, but the mill owners didn't have any oil to sell. Meanwhile, their fixed costs remained exactly the same. Furthermore, the olives that did arrive were often dry and wrinkled, making them incredibly difficult and energy-intensive to process, driving up electricity bills. Many cooperatives had signed forward contracts promising to deliver oil to supermarkets at a set price. When they ran out of their own oil, they were forced to buy oil on the open market at record-high prices just to fulfill those contracts, taking a massive loss on every single bottle shipped. The drought proved that high retail prices do not equal high profits for the producer. So, what does this look like in the financial trenches? How wildly can your fortunes swing? In a good year, nature smiles on Andalusia. There are deep, soaking rains in the spring, and a hot, but not scorching, summer. Come November, the harvest is bountiful. The tractors are lined up around the block, waiting to dump their fruit into your hoppers. Your centrifuges are spinning 24/7. Your yield sits perfectly balanced at around 18%, giving you excellent volume while maintaining fantastic quality. You easily sell out of your premium branded bottles and clear the rest of your stock on the wholesale market. In a year like this, a well-run mill can see net profit margins pushing beautifully into the 15 to 20% range. You pay off debt. You feel like a king. But a bad year is a slow-motion nightmare. It starts with a dry spring. The blossoms fall off the trees before they can turn into fruit. Then, a brutal summer heatwave scorches what little fruit remains. Just as you are getting ready to harvest, an outbreak of the olive fruit fly infests the region, destroying the quality of the olives. Your mill opens, but the tractors are scarce. You are running your massive, power-hungry machinery at 30% capacity. It takes just as much electricity to power up the centrifuge for a small batch as it does for a large one. So your energy cost per kilo of oil skyrockets. Your yields drop to 11%. You produce less than half the oil you did the year before. The fixed costs swallow your cash reserves whole. In a bad year, you aren't trying to make a profit. You are simply trying to survive the winter without declaring bankruptcy. At the end of the day, running a Spanish olive oil mill is a high-stakes negotiation with Mother Nature, brokered through heavy machinery. You invest millions in state-of-the-art technology, only to realize your fate is ultimately decided by a few inches of spring rain and the timing of the winter frost. Because in the economics of olive oil, you are forever trading yield for legacy, fighting the elements just to squeeze a fragile perfection from a stone.